Everyone. Welcome to today's demo. We're going to go through some of the basics of how you can get really organized with Materio. A lot of times on these demos, we try to go through every single thing that sort of is in the platform. But today I wanted to focus on the framework and organization and how this is really going to help you keep every document, every decision, every communication in the right place. So we're going to start with just a floor plan, or excuse me, just a project here. And we're going to start with what you can organize in an individual project in Materio. So this is going to be your hub for a project for getting things communicated and uploaded and sharing with your client, with your team, collaborators. All that's going to be based off of the project. You'll see here that over on the right, I have a visual. This is my floor plan here. You can also upload elevations. You can upload just hand sketches as long as they're a PDF. And then also you can create boards. So I can come in and I can create inspiration boards. I can upload photos. I can also add images from my library. And as I build out my project, I can add in actual products and make product boards. But there's a lot of ways to create the visuals. So over here, this is going to be your storage space for files and visuals, things that you want your team to see are acting as a source of truth. You can also come in and create a board and upload, let's say, images of a before photo. Let's say we want to do, these 3 photos here. I could add these in and very easily, let's put my logo over here. I can come in and sort of organize these as well. So putting in before photos, pulling in information, about these projects. And then alternatively, I could use this as storage. So I could just save this. We'll just throw this together really quick, but we can save this as our before photos. And so I can add those in, and then alternatively, I can also hide this from the client. So the visuals that are down here on the right, those can be hidden from your clients. They can be visible to your clients. They can also be stacked. So you can layer them together kind of like a folder, create a stack, rename that stack. So you could upload, a set of renderings, and you could name this, renders. So all of that is going to be right there. And then as you start to build out the system to create organization, then you can go ahead and add in your plan pages, add in your renderings, and then we're going to get started with adding the scope of work. So the scope of work over here on the left is going to be a way for you to organize what is actually going into this project. So we're going to start an outline here. Now you can customize this as much as you would like. But it's also going to give you some templated options. So kitchen, primary bedroom, primary bath, living room, pantry, etc. If I wanted to add in something custom here, like office bed 3, I could. And then I'm going to scope out what are the services that I'm going to be offering, what's the actual scope of work. So again, this is all going to be a template. If you're running a design build firm, there's a lot of construction things you can do here as well. Oftentimes, a lot of our designers that are doing this are going to be looking mainly at the finishes. And so you'll see that chandeliers, wall lights, sconces, these are just ideas of selections that you might have. In the kitchen, under plumbing, you're going to have all of these types of fixtures. Tile, again, it's just going to provide you some defaults all the way down to, okay, furniture, living room. These are maybe some options that you might want to have. And then I can optionally set the budget. And so this is going to keep you really organized from a budget perspective from the beginning. You can do it by location or by category. Oftentimes, a lot of designers are going to be thinking about this by location. But if you wanted to do by category, this may be the case that you're doing like a spec house with a builder and they're providing you category allowances. For instance, you're going to have $20,000 for all the plumbing. That would be a place that you could input this budget and stick to that if you want to. And then fees, if you're a designer, you're probably going to be doing a markup. This is going to be anywhere from 20 to 100% on your products. You can also alternatively and additionally do fees on top. But for now, we'll include markup. And that's going to bake that in to my price for my client. And then wholesale, and I'm charging tax. So I'm going to put that in. And again, this is on a project level. So you can do different projects. Oftentimes, designers are doing projects in New York and LA and Florida. And so they may have different taxes and different fee structures for different clients. All of that can be set up on a per project basis. So now that I have my visuals over here on the right, and for those of you that are joining, feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go along. Happy to answer those as we go through. But now I have my framework. And so this is my scope of work that started over here on the left, my visuals over here on the right. And this is where I start to connect the dots. So let's go ahead and add in kitchen and living room here, and let's just focus on those two areas. So in the living room, I'm going to have a chandelier. You want to make sure that your items are within the locations. And maybe in the kitchen, I'm going to have sconces, and I'm also going to have some pendants. And when I add in these items, you'll notice this little paint roller is green. That means that this is going to be a selection. And that selection it means a lot in Materio. It means that you're going to be able to slot in products. It means it's going to go through, the approval and the order process. It's just going to be sort of this robust framework for how you take an item, rather than it just being an item or a list, a thing you need to do. It goes through this entire workflow. So it's important that if you have products that are going to be approved by clients, that you want to run through all that process, that you make that a selection. So we're going to make a selection here. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark the plans where I want to put these in. So let's say I'm thinking about the kitchen and I want to do sconces right here and right here. So it's going to calculate 2 units for me. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to estimate my cost is going to be $500. And then I've got my 60% markup and client tax. I'm going to go ahead and get specific on this and estimate a little bit of shipping. Now, if you're managing subcontractors or you're trying to estimate labor for your clients, you can always add that in as well. But really quickly, I know exactly what it's going to cost my client and what my budget is to purchase these sconces as well. So this is the client price. Again, if I dig in, I'll see my cost here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the pendants. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark these. We're going to do 3 pendants over the island. Again, quantifying it for me, and maybe I want to estimate it's going to be $600. Now, if I move over to the living room, I can also use the area tool here to make a larger shape. This is going to help me get dimensions. So maybe I want to see, okay, it's going to be about a 3-foot in radius chandelier. Now it looks like square feet, but what I can just do is adjust this to say 1 unit. And then I'm going to put that it's going to cost $2,500. And so again, I can use the markers to specify what it is that I need and to help me think about what is going to go where. Now, when it comes to tile, we're just going to go through some of these so we can kind of go through the organization. So now I'm going to say, all right, this backsplash tile is going to be $10 a square foot. I'm going to go ahead and use our linear tool. I'm going to mark right here and right here. And I'm also going to mark on this side because I want this tile to go all the way around these windows. And enter. And then I'm going to do 8 feet up from the counter, and I'm going to go ahead and add my waist there as well. So now I've got my backsplash, I've got my estimated cost. Again, I've got my markers there. So when I go to hand this off to the build team, and I go and hand it over to my GC, not only am I going to be able to easily export a list of the actual specs and things I've decided, but they can actually be invited to view the floor plans and touch those markers and see exactly where things are going. So that's a really, really cool feature for how you're organizing now. It feels like you're doing planning in the beginning, but that planning is going to take you all the way through to the end. It's going to take you to actual implementation and getting it off to builders. It's going to make you look incredibly organized and on top of things when it comes to handing off your designs to a GC. So that is one of the biggest benefits, I think, of this framework. And then I'm going to do floor tile just to show you an example. So I can use this area tool, again, drag right here, add in my waist, and done. And then if I had anything more specific, like maybe this primary bath floor tile, you'll notice that I can use this polygon tool and I can kind of get very specific about the shape. Maybe we're going to do all of this the same. So I can go ahead and outline this really easily. And again, know exactly what's needed. So as you build out your project, you're going to mark the floor plans. You're going to use that to your advantage to specify what is needed. Now, this is going to be sort of the initial proposal. I usually suggest not being super, super serious about you don't have to get down to the penny of what you think the product is going to cost. At this point, you're using your best judgment. You can also set up a template in Materio so that you can just create a template project, copy that project and reuse it so that you don't have to estimate these every single time. But this is how you're going to get organized, and this is how you're going to start to set yourself up for success. Now, once I've created this and I've shared it with my client for the first time, we've agreed to move forward, I'm going to start sourcing things. So the selections workspace is where a lot of the design teams are hanging out. This is where what is to be done, right? Like, what do we need to get for this project? So I'm looking at the kitchen here. I can come in and I can pull from my library. You can create custom groups in your library over here, and I can pull in a few sconces. You'll notice that when I do that, there are a few different options for the rate. So you can clip in products with certain rates. You can also pull in that initial estimate from your project as well. And that's just going to protect you as you have maybe junior designers clipping things for you, or you may have forgotten something. That estimate is always going to kind of be your backup, and your library is there for you to help as well. So I'm going to pull in some products that I like, pull in these options. And then let's pull in some tile. I like this one. And let's use this one. And so as you can see, I'm pulling in multiple options for the item. So I'm looking for a pendant, and maybe I want to first pull in a few options for myself, for my team. I know that I'm looking for a brass sort of globe pendant here, but maybe my junior designer is going in and they're sort of pulling in a few different options for me. And then me as a lead designer is coming in and going, you know what, I don't think that this one is like the vibe of this project. Let's get rid of that one. Okay, we've got two options here. And actually, I want to present this one to my client first. So let's put that as option one. So you can kind of come in and play around with this as a workspace of pulling in the designs and pulling in ideas really easily. And at the same time, you'll see that I have attachments here. I have cost information and vendor information. So on your end, you're going to have all of that information super organized in one place. And as you pull it from your library, it's going to have all of that with it. Now, to get things into your library, we'll go over that really quick. I can go to a website. I can go to, let's just pull in some kind of fixture here. Let's say that I want to pull in, which one do I like? Being picky today, we'll do this one. So I can come in and use our clipper, and it's going to pull in the image. It's going to try to pull in product information, SKU, all of that. I'm going to categorize this under electrical. Again, these are the subgroups that I've created for my firm. I can move this over to the left if it's in my way. If I want to, remove photos or add photos, I can do that. Add in information here. This description is client facing. So if it's anything you don't want your client to see, make sure you put it as an internal note. It's going to pull in the price. Then I'm going to be able to put in my markup. If I want to have any sales tax to my client, what the lead time might be. So I can look for that here. And then also, if there's any technical resources like install guides, I can just right click and attach that file. So again, that is going to now live with this product in my library. So as I pull it across projects, and maybe as it's approved and I hand it off to the electrician, that install guide is going to be right there with that. So let's pull in do we have one here? We don't. We'll pull it in electrical. Oops. So I'm going to pull this in from my library, and you'll see that it's listed at the top here under electrical as new. And so you can see the things that you've clipped recently for 24 hours. And this is going to be all of your team clipping into one library that can be used across projects. So now I've pulled that in. So now that I have some options here, you'll see that it says it's ready to send. This is how I know I can now send this over to my client for approval. So I'm going to send these over. There's obviously some filters here if you want to filter down, if you're doing a really large project and you want to filter down by just the kitchen, or maybe you're just sending over electrical fixtures, you can do that. I'm going to send that over to my to my client. It's going to clear out of this open workspace, and it's going to land over here in awaiting approval. This is how you know your client has it. It's in their hands. And so this is part of the organization and sort of the framework where we're not only giving you a place to do this, but we're trying to guide you in the process. We're trying to help you go step by step to make sure that these things are taken care of, things are not dropped on the ground, and that you really don't have to build out necessarily to-do lists, because this is kind of a natural to-do list for you. So let's just say that the clients approve these. You can also do this on your end if you're playing catch up on a project. And you'll notice too, as I make approvals, I can see what has already been approved in that room. So I can use that as a guide as I'm making decisions. So the clients have that as sort of a tool in their back pocket. Okay, I can see what would I like to go with these designs. And usually, as a design firm, you might be putting one option forward that you feel really strongly about. And there may just be more of an economical choice there if you want to add in a second option. Sometimes, you just want to give your clients choices. So those have been approved. Some of them have been declined. The ones that are confirmed are going to be moved over to the confirmed workspace. And this is where you're going to take the next step. This is, now I need to collect payment for it. Has it been ordered? What is the status? Has it shipped? All of that is going to show up here as we progress through this project. You can also view this in a table view. It's going to give you a little bit more information. And this is also one of the ways that you can hand this off to builders. So there is a live link way to do this, which will give your builder or your GC a really interactive live way to look at it without logging in. But you can also come over and print these selections. You can get very specific with them. You can print them by location, by category, etc. And then it's going to print it out in this sort of PDF view here. So it's very robust. There's a lot of ways you can get this out of the system. But as we get things confirmed, this is when we're going to start to think about how we get paid for it and how we can collect that from our clients. So I'm going to head over to the finances section under billing, and this is where you can go ahead and send an invoice for the project scope. Now, if you're running a design retainer at the beginning of a project, we have videos on that. You can collect a retainer and use that as well, but I'm not going to dive into that today's demo. I can add these items. I can decide how much I want to collect, whether it's 50% or 100%. I'm going to go ahead and add that to the invoice. I want to cover my expenses on this one, so I'm going to do 75%. And then I'm going to offer online payment options. So Materio has an integration with Stripe, and you can get paid online. You can push those fees over to the clients. We know that's a big deal sometimes. So you can push that onto the client if you'd like to. And you can also do wire transfers for really large transactions very safely. So that is all here as well. I'm going to send it over. Also, I should note that we have an amazing QuickBooks integration. It is becoming known as one of the top integrations. And so it makes all the accounting seamless. You're doing your project management, and that's going to sync over to QuickBooks. So if you have questions about that, we have extra videos. We're happy to do trainings on that as well. So that's sent over. For the sake of this, I'm just going to mark it as paid. And I'm going to say that we received a check for this. If you'd want, you can send a confirmation over to your client. So now this is paid. And if I head over to my selections, you'll see that now these are labeled as partially paid 75%. So it's going to give you a strong indicator of where you're at. In this case, now I'm ready to collect, ready to go place an order. So in the Materio orders tab right here, you'll see that the orders are actually auto drafted based on approval. So as items are approved, they're going to be auto drafted by vendor. So I can open this up and I can see what has already been, what needs to be ordered or what hasn't been ordered. I can add in sub items and more specifics here. But in this case, I can do two things. I can record an order that I've already placed online, which is a really common workflow, or I can go ahead and send a purchase order to an actual vendor contact. So if you wanted to send to a vendor, you would just preview the email. You have some check boxes here where you can display certain information. But in my case, oftentimes I'm just ordering online. And so I'm going to upload a receipt here for what I've ordered. Now, this is just a sample content, so it's going to look a little different, but we're going to pretend that these match. And what we're going to do is take a look at our order over here on the right, and we're going to make sure that the pricing and what we paid for it, quantity, shipping, all of that lines up, the total lines up. Now, this is really cool because now I can say, great, this is confirmed. I can save it. If I've not already, made a payment, or if I have, which in this case I have, I'm going to go ahead and submit it. Now, if I have QuickBooks Online, I can submit my payment method here, and it's going to auto reconcile this transaction in my banking feed. So it's going to create that PO, it's going to create the bill payment, and it's going to reconcile it in my banking feed, which is awesome. So I'm going to save that, and it's going to ask me, do I want to update the status from selected to ordered? Absolutely, I do. So it's going to do that automatically for me. Now I get an email. This thing has shipped. I can come in and track shipments. So I can say, UPS, here's the tracking information. It's shipped today, and it's going to be delivered on Monday. And I can say, great, this is shipped. Now, if you had multiple items on this order, I could come in and specify maybe only one of these units has been shipped. I can also just say, okay, it's only one of them. Materio is then going to recognize that I'm missing another unit, and I can come in and track another shipment on it. But when I save the shipment, again, it's going to ask me if I want to update that status. It's going to keep me in check for all of my line items here. And it's also going to put it on my timeline. So my timeline is empty right now. I didn't build one out before, but it's generated one for me, and it's showing me that I have an expected delivery on the 13th. I can track it right here. I can see this item's history. If I get a notification that it's moved, I can just update that right here. So this is the ultimate tool for creating kind of a scope of work, things that need to be done, and not having to manually create those to-dos for the things that have to be done. We're going to take you through that process. So it's really, really, really streamlined. It's going to just take you to the next step every bit along the way. So now I've ordered that. if I had labor purchase orders, let's say I was hiring an electrician to help me and it was 10 grand of work, I could come in, track against that labor, I could do multiple payments against it. All of that's going to run through this orders process here and be synced over. Now, another thing about sort of keeping your team organized, especially if you're tracking hourly, is going to be making sure that you're tracking your time. Even if you're not billing hourly, I always recommend tracking your time, tracking your team's time so that you can know exactly what you're doing. So I can come up here, I can say that I was working on conceptual design, I can start my timer, I can add in notes. As I'm working in this project that's going to be running in the background, I can always, stop this. I can also track manually. So let's say that I worked on space planning for 3 hours today. I could do that. Super easy to track your time and Materio. And then better yet, it's even easier to come in and add it to an invoice. So I can just add the hours that were logged. All of my team's time will show up right here. And I can very easily add this to an invoice and send this over for my monthly billing. So we're making all of the pieces super connected here. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is activity feed. So when it comes to organizing your team and organizing projects, there's always going to be, outside communications, meeting notes, things that you want to store in a certain place. That's going to be documented here in the activity feed. So things that are already naturally happening in Materio, those are going to show up here. This is an internal feed. Your client does not see this unless you decide to share a report with them. But I can also come in and I can add in multiple photos here. So let's say I wanted to add in these as site visit photos. I could do that. I can make this invisible to the client so they don't see it. I can put in all of my meeting notes here, went to the site, received, the fixtures, whatever it is. I can do this from here. I can also do this from my mobile app. I can go on the job site or go into the install day, take pictures and note all of that down here. Save it, and it's going to be saved here as a note. Again, I can decide to not let the client see that. I can also come in and prepare a report where I can send it to my clients and decide what I do want them to see. So all of that is going to be here. That information and those progress updates. One is going to happen automatically through the system. The other is going to be you adding in these notes through the mobile app and doing all of that to keep your team organized and on top of it. Another thing about communication, which we haven't covered yet, is you can communicate on the floor plan. So you can use commenting to let your team know what you think. And then you can also make this an internal conversation. You can mention certain team members and clients depending on the type of conversation it is. And this is great for even in the space planning phase when you're working on the layouts. You can communicate back and forth and upload new versions of the floor plan and make sure that everything is tidied away. And then you can also come in and communicate directly on this scope item. So when you first share the proposal, or as your team is discussing maybe what do we want to source for the kitchen pendant, you can come in and have internal conversations about, I was thinking we wanted to have a brass globe fixture here. I think we want to do 2 or 3 of these over the island. Can you source some ideas? Mention your junior designer who's working for you. You can do that right here. And then you can also come in and as you have products added, you can discuss these options with your client. So they can, you could present 3 options to them. They could come in and let you know what they think. You could present 3 options internally and you guys could talk about which ones that you want to put forward. So it's a great place to discuss things very directly. Now, the last thing I think we're going to talk about today, because we are coming up on our 30 minutes, is the timeline. So I know I generated a timeline earlier by putting this delivery on here, but what we're going to do is clear this out. And I want to show you how you can create a template and you can use that template. So let's say that I wanted to do, a design template here where I've got everything that I want to pull in on a design project. What this is going to do is allow me to have planned phases of work. So client onboarding, and under that client onboarding, I'm going to have client intake, contract sent, signed, retainer, all of that. I can come in and assign it to the person on my team who I want to take care of that. And so this is just going to allow me to have a template where I immediately know on this project, these are the things that we're going to take care of. And this is generally how long they're going to take. Now you can always come in and customize this. You can drag these to be longer. And you'll see that it has built-in dependencies here. So if I'm pushing a certain phase and another phase is dependent on it, it's going to shift that work over. Let's say my project start date has changed. I can just drag this, and again, it's going to push everything with it. So it is really, really helpful to have these templates where you can come in and put, exactly what you want to have in those phases, and you're not having to recreate it every single time. Now, when there's one-off task, like something needs to be returned, um, maybe the lamp came in damaged, I can return it. I can open this task up. I can attach a return label to it. Let's just give an example here. I can put in a note. I can assign it to someone else on my team, and I can even ask Materio to notify me when it's finished. So somebody else is going to do the work. I want to make sure that I'm notified when it's done, and it needs to be done by Friday. So I can get pretty specific on my task here. That task is going to show up right here. That attachment is going to be right there. And then it's also going to show up on Emily's personal task list. When she logs in, she's going to be able to see she needs to return this lamp by Friday, and here's all the information she needs to do it. So this is going to keep not only your project organized, you can optionally share this with your client if you want to give them some insight into the project timeframe, but it's also a way for you to communicate with your team about what needs to be done when, apart from what's already here. So again, you're going to come in, you're going to see, hey, all of these things are needed. So maybe I want to assign all the kitchen selections to Emily. Maybe I want to assign Emily to source all the plumbing options. You can do that here. Now, I guess I said the timeline was the last thing. We have 1 more minute. So I do want to touch on boards. So now that we've started to have some products on our project in our board, you can also come in and not only create those inspiration boards that we talked about at the beginning, but I can come in and add selections. So if I have all of my kitchen options here, I can just select kitchen, and I can add in these options. You'll see that even the ones that are declined show up, so I can filter between the options. Usually you're probably going to do this before you've gotten approval on it, but I can very easily come in and I can pull product. I can even optionally show the label on them if I wanted to. So I kind of start to organize what this looks like for the client. I can say, okay, here's all of the fixtures that we're going to have on this project. And so you can make this look much better than what I'm doing right now, but this is a great way for you to come in and very clearly organize and put everything together on a board. Now the labels make it look a little bit boring, but if you wanted to kind of customize this, you can. And then you may say, okay, these are all of the things that we have selected so far. Maybe I want to add in an image from my library here. With a countertop material that I like. Let's say I wanted to this one, I can just add it in. And then I could, put this, organize this in a way and present it to my client and say, okay, these are all the things that we have selected. What do you think about this one? So I could come in and say, let me know what you think about this one, about this option. I think it goes well with everything else we have approved. And so you can do that, mention your client if you'd like to, and they can come in and talk to you about this. Now you'll notice that these are actual products that when I click them, link to the scope of work. So again, this is the difference in a product board versus what we talked about at the beginning, which is an inspiration board, which is just static photos that are pulled from my library to create inspiration. And then as I start to add actual products to the selections, that's when I'm going to be able to create kind of these product boards. So that is kind of the framework and the organization of Materio in a nutshell. I know it's hard to cover it all in 30 minutes, but I don't want to take up everyone's time today. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to assume that that is it. If y'all have any questions about Materio, if you're in your trial or you're looking to start a trial, you can always reach out to us at hello@materio.co, and we would be more than happy to help you. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel. We often put up these demos on there. We also have less than 5-minute tutorials that can be really helpful when getting started. So thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, again, just reach out to us at hello@materio.co. Bye, everyone.